All right, Chris Long is here, host of the Green Light podcast, or the Green Pod.
No,
one of my favorite
BG,
people.
Brandon Graham said that too. He called
Green
us the
Pod?
Green Pod, which I kind of like. I might change it, honestly.
If enough people say it, you just go with it.
Yeah, dude, it's good for branding.
All right, so I have a couple questions off the top. So I got into this over the weekend with a couple friends of mine, and I'm gonna just you have the floor on it. So I don't think, and you had an amazing career, and there's a bunch of places that remember you fondly, but I don't think you're a statue type of player. You're not going to have a statue Nick Foles. You're not going to have a statue in New England that's going to go to Tom Brady and Bill Belichick. But if you were to get a statue anywhere in life, what would that be? Like for me, it'd be outside the Gap in Miami where I bought a bunch of T-shirts when I was like in college. Like it'd be that for me, or a couple bars in Orlando. Like they're building a Chris Long statue. Where is it going?
Oh man, probably on the Delaware River, where I fell just short of a world record, where I floated a 1,200-pound pumpkin 39 miles down the river, and came up just short. But I think right there at that bridge that ended our journey, it would be really nice to have me in a pumpkin with like a single paddle. You know, a guy just broke the record this week. He went 46 miles. Yeah. So I was gunning for the 40-mile mark. I hit 39. And this guy up in the Pacific Northwest just did 46. So
how if I may ask, how does that end? How can you not go 40 miles? Like what happens at the end of that kind of journey?
Well, I would say mile 33, the hole in the pumpkin became a big problem. We also ran out of daylight, and it was one of those things. I've been out there for 2 days now because we picked the Delaware River. It's a little slower and not a silt, but like you want a silt bottom river.
Yeah, of course.
You know, of course. And we ended up kind of picking the wrong river, ran into a bunch of rocks. There were a lot of rocks on this river, and a hole about this big ended our day, but we fought on for another like 4 miles, and it got dark, and we got flipped in these rapids in the dark. And so it became a kind of a safety issue for me.
Have you ever seen the Robert Redford movie, All Is Lost?
No, but I heard it's good.
So it's literally this guy gets a hole in his boat. It's Robert Redford. He's the only person in the movie in like minute one. And then the rest of the movie is just him dealing with the hole in his boat. And my wife, there's no words in the movie. My wife walked in halfway through. I explained the concept, and she said, "That is the most male movie of all time." And I was
maybe I did watch that movie. Is it more recent?
It's like in the last 10 years.
Yeah, and he's like, it's an ocean deal, right?
Yeah, it's an ocean deal.
I think I might have seen it, and I love the movies where nobody talks as well. So can confirm
exactly. You can't. Like, it's
Castaway.
I'm not missing any dialogue. Yeah, of course.
Drive. Ryan Gosling barely speaks. His name is Driver. If you look it up in the credits, he has no name. Like, that's great.
There it is. Hey, I have a couple questions about the Lions Hangover, which you popularized over the past couple weeks. And I just want to talk big picture because it's still bearing out. But, like, when you play against a physical team like that, and I saw some screen grabs. My new thing now is that instead of all these guys who are like, oh, I'm going to take a screen grab of a quarterback and the wide receivers are open, he didn't throw it. Like, I hate those screen grabs. I want more line of scrimmage screen grabs because I saw some Penei Sewell ones yesterday where he's opened up the line of scrimmage. I'm like, I want that. I want that all the time. When you play against a team like that, how does that feel the next week? Like, what were the teams in your career where 7 days later you were still feeling it?
Well, it's a great question. And as for the Lions, like they're kind of doing what San Francisco did a couple years ago. So, there are some similarities there. And I think the biggest one is this defense got more physical this year. Yeah. Like last year, I thought the defense was physical. Like that Rams playoff game was one of the most physical games of the season. But now they're actually more evenly distributed from a talent standpoint. And obviously, when they had Aiden Hutchinson, they were great up front. Handsy outside. So offensively, obviously the anchor for me is that offensive line, and like having to deal with that all game long, a team like Green Bay plays them yesterday, and it's just going to come down to, like how many times can you stop the run? And the reason I love committing the run game it's not always going to be pretty, but those 3-yard runs turn into 5, 7, 12, 14, 60-yard runs where you got somebody like Jahmyr Gibbs in the second half. And so I think it's the attrition of just pure math. Like when you do reps in, practice, you don't do 30 reps of inside run. Like you try to not do that because guys' bodies would fall apart. You know what I'm saying? So, when you play a team like, Detroit, there's no way to replicate not only the commitment to the run game, the physicality, even the ball carriers. Like David Montgomery, I got a scar on my hand and a plate in my hand from my hands fused, and it's from Marshawn Lynch. It's like, I used to play in the NFC West, and, when we play San Francisco or Seattle, and shoot, when teams would play us a little bit too, we didn't win a lot, but we were very physical. It just lingers, man. Like you see these teams, every couple of years where there is something like this and some idiot like me picks it up, just kind of looking at scores and lines I was looking at for gambling. But what I realized was like, and still, by the way, Pat's covered. Yeah, but what I realized is that these teams are physically beat up, and I think that hangover does last.
Explain the Marshawn Lynch fuse thing. Like, what did he get you with?
Last game of the season, we're not going to the playoffs. We're playing our customary week 17, back when they played 17 weeks. Yeah. And we walked uphill to school in the snow. And, it was the end of the game. Everybody's booking. You talk about like Cancun on 3. We were we'd gotten pretty good about knowing when our season ended. And for a guy like me in the fourth quarter I came off a block late and just threw my arm and my body in there. And he came in with a head of steam and just ran through my hand. And, I got up and I was like, man, like my thumb is just moving in ways that it shouldn't. And basically it was like CMC, not Christian McCaffrey, but it's like a ligament. Yeah. And I guess I kind of just tore it all up. And so they tried to rehab it by putting pins in my hand to set it, right? Okay. And the pins they left exposed. So there were 2 pins. You're talking about sending a 24-year-old, 25-year-old guy into the offseason with 2 exposed pins sticking out of his hand. Like I'm drunk at the bar, like bending the pins, right? Yep. Surprise, surprise, the pins didn't set, so they got to put a big plate in there, and now I can't flatten my hand. But like that's Marshawn Lynch. So you think about playing a team like that a ball carrier like that physically. I've arm tackled a lot of people just late into a gap. No one's ever like hurt me like that. Sometimes you got a David Montgomery, Marshawn Lynch type of guy. Like that adds to the attrition playing a team like that.
Wow, that's Marshawn Lynch, man. They don't make a lot of guys like that. I'll say that. They don't make a lot of guys like that. So Dennis Allen got fired this morning, and I don't like he deserved it. And like they didn't do a lot of winning or whatever. But I thought it was interesting. There was a stat out there, I think CBS put it out, the lowest winning percentage for head coaches in the last 30 years. Dennis Allen, number 1 with the bullet, 329. Romeo Crennel after that, Jim Schwartz after that, Dom Capers after that, Doug Marrone after that. And I was struck by the fact that 4 of those 5 had two jobs. Yeah. And in some cases were interim somewhere else. And yet some owner was like, no, this is my guy. Like, even though he won 30% of his games last time, this time it's going to be different. I'm curious, like, big picture, you're so good on this stuff. Do we hire coaches wrong? Or is it just like some owners just don't put a lot of effort into it? Like, explain the process of why we're all so bad at hiring coaches.
I think there's some coaches that come across as more safe for a particular organization, like New Orleans. They like continuity. Mickey has done a great job there. Yeah, definitely. With accruing talent. I'm sure if you ask Saints fans, they tell you missed on this guy, that guy. But I think outside looking in, he's done a pretty good job. And I think Dennis Allen just kind of got stale. I mean, it's like, I think he's a good coordinator, but there's so much that goes into being a head coach, obviously outside of calling plays. And I think that's what a guy like Jeff Ulbricht's finding out right now. Like, I think, not to sidebar, but like, look at all of a sudden you went from weighing in on defense, getting that defense ready to play, to not only losing one of the best minds in the defensive room in Robert Saleh, but now you got the headset on all game. And, the defense doesn't always respond well to that. And you've seen they haven't played their best ball at all times since that move was made. So, I think there's a lot of.
I'm real quick. I'm rejecting that because Dominique Foxworth made that point a couple weeks ago to me, and I rejected it then, and I can't prove him right.
You can't prove him right.
He said Nathan Hackett should have been the interim head coach because they were already bad on offense and just let the defense do their thing.
That's one of the problems. Like when you look at the Jets, I mean, like there was nobody to like. Yeah. There was nobody to promote. When you fire the side of the ball that's good, now what? And to the point, like maybe Nathaniel Hackett, the one thing he ironically might be less bad at would be like being a head coach. Yeah. He's done that before. No, but I'm just saying like.
Yeah, I know what you're saying.
You got to know, like relative to, that's a really tough job. Like to all of a sudden have to make decisions on the clock, on reviews, on, building the week out, on how you're going to travel. Like, and it's one of the reasons I think a lot of coaches like having, the Vic Fangio hire was big for me, not just defensively, but also to have a former head coach in the building for Nick, but back to the main point. The main point is I do think the, coaching circles are kind of like old boys clubs, like we know that. I mean, some of the hiring practices are a little bit like, and it was explained to me in general, consider being one of these people with all this money, right? Like you're not really hanging out with people that live differently than you. You're not like cutting up in different social circles. So like you certainly don't know who's going to be best for the locker room, right? When you hire as an owner. I think it's one of the most imperfect practices in major sports. I mean, it's like one guy who really doesn't know anything about football is the final say on the most important piece of a team, which is the head man, the leader, like forget college quarterbacks. Like that's a crapshoot, but I mean, it's a crapshoot hiring head coaches because for the most part, these are old rich guys that don't spend too much time in the locker room and like, they don't know what, so they're not in a social circle that would give them, kind of the, the perspective to make the right decision. And then they like safe. So if they know a guy, Ty goes to the guy that they know, and like, I want to be able to control a guy, and some guys are more like that than others. And, I think some guys shouldn't get two jobs, but I do think there's some guys that should. And so it's a tough deal, but I think Dennis Allen, the thing's run its course. And I think Mike McCarthy is another guy that, you look at the Cowboys, I'm kind of like, there is like an antiquated kind of vibe around, guy's been coaching a long time. It doesn't feel like he's been incredibly progressive in, some of the concepts and, it's just more of the same there. So for these teams, eventually you have to make a decision like Dallas, like where are you going? What could you imagine happening that would save his job? So why not do it now? You know what I mean?
I completely agree. And also just so I do radio with Mike Tannenbaum, and he was talking about the Jets thing with Jeff Ulbrich, and what he was saying was one of the reasons they fired Joe Philbin really early is they had Dan Campbell on staff. Mm-hmm. And they wanted to see, they were like, hey, we think we got a head coach on staff, so let's just see. And for me, I'd want to see like, hey, does this guy galvanize a team? And I don't know who we're talking about on Cowboys. Al Harris is on staff. That might be a guy who could command the locker room. Like it's guys like that where it's like, hey, let's give this guy 10 weeks to build something. I'll give you a great example. Everybody loves Darren Rizzi, and when he interviewed in Miami a couple of years ago, guys like Jason Taylor were coming out of the woodwork to say like it's about damn time people understand how good Darren Rizzi is, and so now he gets half a season to prove himself. Maybe he's not going to be the guy, but like they're going to tear down that roster. Is there going to be a lot of interest there? Like it's a good thing to kind of see. Piggybacking off something you said, can you explain like what actually makes a player's coach? Because I think owners sometimes think there's something that makes players coach. It's not really what it is. And I remember I love Mike Vrabel. I did a big piece on him a couple of years ago, and we sat down and one of the things he said that I thought would probably resonate with players is like, hey, there's a financial reality to this. And what I get to say is, and what I like to say is like, if you do this, you can feed your family. If you do this specific role on special teams, or if you're our blocking tight end, you get to get a contract that's going to give you financial security, which I thought is like, that's how players respond. So I'll give you the floor. What makes a player's coach?
I think for some people, they probably think a player's coach is the guy who's going to give you the most days off and yada, yada, yada. I mean, that definitely can be a thing, but I think for me, a player's coach is somebody that doesn't bullshit you. It's that simple. Like there's so much bullshit in the NFL, it'll make your head spin. There's so much politics in the NFL, upstairs, downstairs. There's so many coaches that are faking it until they make it. No, I mean, there's players like that too, but certainly like coaches can kind of hide and get rehired. And so I think a head coach that's going to meet you where you are as a player, treat you like a peer, but you can take that player to task. You can take that peer to task. There is a hierarchy, but we're also coworkers. It's I'm pretty sure when I played for Jeff Fisher, I call him a player's coach.
Yeah.
Because you look up some days and you'd be like, he threw us a bone because he's been here. He played in the NFL. He understands. He was on that Bears defense back in the day. He understands when we need a break. But that didn't mean we didn't work our asses off.
Right.
To me, we practiced under Fish as hard as Bill in camp. Like that was one of the most Doug Peterson physical camp, very physical, Andy Reid kind of thing. He's going to ask a lot of you, but he's also going to meet you where you are. And by that, I mean, those people when you meet them, and those people when you're around them. They're the leaders that can talk to you eye to eye, but maintain that hierarchy. I am your coach. Buck stops with me. At the end of the day, though, we're teammates. We are, and I'll talk to you like a man. I'll tell you the truth if it's not going well. That's part of telling the truth. Is like, don't bull me. Tell me when I'm playing like. Explain to me. Have the balls to walk up to me in the facility, call me up and tell me you're going to demote me or that my snaps are going down. That can be a player's coach too, in my opinion. Player's coach treats me like an adult. That's what I want to be treated like, an adult, not like a less than, not a kid. None of this programmatic like sayings, these alliteration sayings on the wall. It's not that. And it's not days off. But what it is it's being a coworker. Yeah. Not a big brother figure, not a dad figure. It's like, and that's why I think young coaches who get it, like Kevin O'Connell, he's young, dude. He's my age. Sometimes I'm sitting around here doing what I do for a living. I'm like, I can't even imagine being a head coach, Rob Mayo. But the key is it's leveling with your players. It's just being on the same page. It's not bull. Them, and it's telling them the hard things, and it's telling them when they do things right. You got these coaches, they want to withhold praise, they want to over criticize or vice versa. Just be honest, bro, and be yourself. Because players are the hardest people in the world to BS. You walk in a room full of 53 guys your first day. Be careful what your message is, because if you're full of it, we know, bro. So your best bet, if you're a nerd, be a nerd. If you're an analytics guy, be an analytics guy. If you're a meathead, be a meathead. Be yourself, And at the end of the day, what you're going to be evaluated on is coaching, the decisions you make. So be yourself, be honest with the players.
I did a story with Dan Campbell when he first got the Lions job, and Aaron Glenn, still the DC, still doing a great job, getting better every year. That secondary is nasty. He said the number one thing about Dan Campbell, so you always have to remember players can smell a fraud a mile away. The moment that Dan Campbell arrived, everybody said, this guy's the real deal, and then everything flows through there.
You know who said it was he was a fraud? I'm sorry to interrupt you, but who said it was a fraud was a lot of the media members.
Yeah.
And that's what we have to remember is not saying we played, you didn't. I'm not saying that to the media. But what I'm saying is players know the character that will work. You know what I mean? It's just, and you brought up Dan. It's a great point, Kev, talking about Aaron Glenn and what he said. But there's one thing that sticks out in my mind. When you watch their training camp mic'd up, Hard Knocks, whatever it was, there was a scene that I'll never forget where he was going to bust their ass in practice. He was like, guys, I'm going to get after your ass today. It's going to be a knockdown, drag out. Tell me why.
Yeah.
Don't test me. Don't sneak challenges in on me. Tell me what the syllabus is and tell me it's going to be a mother day.
Yeah. And
tell me why. And then we'll go into it together. But don't play games. Don't play motivational games. Don't play Dan's not a game player. And that's a perfect example, but he works them hard.
Yes, 100%, 100%. And I think there were some veteran guys in that roster the first year who weren't into the up down stuff and the rah rah stuff. They got rid of them by that trading deadline. And and again, that's also part of the process. Hey, you're not into this. There's another team that's probably better for you. And it's not personal. It's not like, hey, well, Dan's not like, you don't like my shtick. It's like, no. Like, I'm trying to do something with these young guys. I'm not reaching you. Let's get out of here. I mean, I've talked to a bunch of guys like that. The Jason Kelce thing, I don't want to talk about the specifics of it because Jason Kelce was 100% on the right.
Yeah.
James Franklin said today that he's glad in 2024, because obviously it was a Penn State game, he's glad in 2024 that some people face consequences for that. So even Franklin's on the bandwagon when obviously head coach is kind of the spokesman for the entire state, let alone the university. I'm curious, though, you're a professional athlete. You run in a lot of the same circles with these guys. Are people too comfortable with the phone stuff?
Absolutely. I mean, I understand that like we're very lucky to play the game we played. So maybe some of the things that come with it aren't going to be great. You know, like sometimes people are going to invade your privacy, your space. Like I try to be if you've met me, like for the most part, I think people would be like, man, what a nice guy. Like I really try to be nice to every person I meet in person. Some people on the internet, because of the way they come off, I can be an asshole. But like if you're a fan and you run up to me, I'm going to be very patient too, like to the point where some of my friends are like, how are you so patient? I'm like, well, I deal with a lot, not like Jason. Yeah. But I think the main thing is every guy has like kind of a code where it's like certain things are pet peeves. For me, it's don't ask me to take a picture when I'm holding my son. Yeah. If I got to put my son down to do something, sign an autograph, take a picture, I don't like that. Or my daughter, like if we're eating a meal, I don't love that. If you come up to me and you're rude to my wife, that's a big one to me is like, you come up to me, you shake my wife's hand too, and you say, nice to meet you. If you're going to interrupt what we're doing. But other than that, I'll talk to whoever it is way too long. I'll sign whoever, like, because I'm not that famous. Like, I'm barely famous. So like for me,
you are famous.
But if I was Jason Kelce,
yes.
I mean, I feel for my guy because, I saw this coming. Just when he took all these jobs, it's like he's already so famous, but now he's like different kind of famous. And I think the biggest problem with today's generation of kids, I hate to say that like that, but I sound like an old man, but I think everything's about clout now in the world, like period. Like, and it's hard as even a media member not to fall in these traps. Like everybody is chasing clout and it's the quickest way that I can get my 5 minutes of fame. Yeah. Like that guy getting the phone smacked out. If it weren't for the fact that it seems like the whole internet turned on this guy, which is hard to do, the Ravens fan that knocked two Commanders fans out and this guy are kind of like the rare breed that can be such assholes.
0% approval rating.
Everybody hates him, which is really hard to do right now, except for maybe 10% of people that don't like Taylor Swift. I can't figure out why. Yeah. And but I think like nowadays, a kid that gets smacked in the face, like, might say, hey, look what I got. I got smacked in the face by Jason Kelce. Oh, look what I have on my phone. He smacked the phone out of my hand. Like, oh, I win. It's basically, it's like internet trolls in person. And for the most part, those people know there's a line. But then there's some people like that. And that rarely happens. Like, that's never happened to me in my life. Like, the problem is most people run up on somebody like that and they're like, oh, I'm in the enclosure. Yeah. And then what you see is when Jason Kelce snaps, the fan gets to see what it's like to fall into the polar bear cage. You know what I mean? Like when you see somebody at the zoo that like comes to and they're sitting in the enclosure, they're like, how did I get here? Oh my God, there's the bear. Like that's what it is. You want to know what it feels like? It could have been a lot worse for that guy if there weren't a million people around and Jason wasn't so damn patient, because that way it could have been a lot worse. If it was me, like, I don't know. And then people would call me. So it's like, that's the one downside of being Jason. Right. And people at home aren't going to feel bad for him because he's got a bunch of money. Everybody loves him. And I'm not expecting people to feel bad for pro athletes, but we are treated sometimes like not real people. You know what I mean? Like no 100%. Other person you're going to walk up, use that word. It was like the trifecta: personal space, slur, and family. Like I would have loved to see that guy get smacked in the face.
Me too.
But Jason's a better man than me.
It appears I'm not even really capable. I'm like 160 pounds. I'm not really capable.
You can still open hand smack somebody in the face.
I can open hand, yeah, but I might lose the fight eventually. Jason Kelce's probably he wins that one a million times out of a million. You do as well. So like,
I don't know if I win it.
Yeah.
I'm not that big. Like honestly, I've lost some weight, and there's some dudes that could whip my ass for sure. Like you never know.
Bro, I think that if you walk into 99.9% of bars in America, you're the alpha there.
Maybe so, but there's a lot of guys with cauliflower ears walking around.
Yeah.
Now, here's the thing about
Remember
them.
that Oklahoma fight? Remember that one a couple years ago
in the bathroom?
Where it's like, dude, these guys, they seem very calm at the beginning of the fight. I wouldn't proceed here. Like that was the thing a couple weeks ago with I don't know if you saw it, the Buffalo Bills fan in the upper deck where like, I guess he was a professional boxer and he's very calm and this guy's screaming at him. It's like, man, if somebody's really calm in this scenario, just back away. Nature's telling you not to proceed here.
There's something off here if the guy does not like raise his voice or his I saw that thing and then they showed the boxer's highlights and I was like, bro. But here's the thing. I don't think it's just pro athletes. I think people have no respect anymore for each other. Yeah. And I think the internet culture has ruined real life. And I think there's too many people that grew up in situations where they never got punched in the face. And I'm not saying that's like a prerequisite to being an adult, but I'm pretty sure that guy never got punched in the face. I'm not saying that's like a rite of passage for every American, but if you're going to act that way, eventually somewhere down, and he's lucky it's not somebody with less to lose. That's the thing. Like you do that to somebody with less to lose, you might be in real trouble. So it's kind of a soft target too. You're broad daylight, thousands of people around you running up on Kelce. It's just weak.
I completely agree. Jason did as much as he could do in that spot, and we all support him. Have you ever been punched in the face?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I've been punched in the face a few times, but by a stranger, by a teammate. I had it coming. I was real drunk talking to somebody in Missouri and hanging out a car window, and he punched me in the eye. It barely. I mean, I had like a little shiner, and the driver pulled off. So it's like, bro, I know enough not to. I've been punched in the face. I'll put it that way.
All right, let's move on. Let's move on from getting punched in the face.
Have you been punched in the face?
Yeah. So we were at a poker night when I was like 17 years old, and we were just sitting around drinking beer. Maybe for legal reasons I should be older than in the story, but it was a total accident. We were like five guys, and one of them like kind of pushed another guy, and he fell over the back of the chair. And we were just roughhousing, right? Just like normal guys. So then the guy's like kind of a sarcastic, funny guy. His name's Brady. He's a pretty good like nature influencer now. Like he's on National Geographic and stuff. Great guy.
No way.
And he literally goes, it was him just to like screw with me a little bit. And the guy didn't wait for him to be like, I'm just kidding, it was me. And he just rolled up on me and just punched me right in the face. It was at my house.
You got punched in the face at your own house over something somebody else did?
Yes. And it was like, we were just roughhousing. Nobody meant it that, but this guy, I guess he had too many. He has kind of a short fuse to begin with. And I just got destroyed. It hurt so bad. And I just kicked everybody out of the house except, and there were like a bunch of guys. My friend Ben Jakowski got to stay, and we just sort of sat there, and I just put ice over it for a while. It sucked.
Nose or?
It was nose, right here.
Yeah, awful. You don't want to get punched in the nose.
Awful.
I've broken my nose. Like you see my nose is crooked, but that wasn't from getting punched in the face. That was from football. But like, I've been punched in the eye, side of the head, jaw. You got to go through that. See, you and I are walking around just talking to strangers like that.
I'm definitely not pushing people over chairs. I'm definitely not doing that because Brady did it, and hey, look what happened to me, bro. Let's switch gears. I
think people that love your pod are psyched to hear that story.
That I got punched in the face?
Yeah.
Or that you did?
No, that you got punched in the face because that's so damn. Yeah. I mean, like that was like you were really open about that.
I mean, it happened. There's like a bunch of guys in Orlando who probably tell that story all the time. I see him on around the horn.
Kevin Clark.
I saw that guy. He maybe teared up a little bit. I think maybe because he got punched in the face on accident at his own house. Why should you bet with Caesars Sportsbook? 2 words. Caesars Rewards. Every bet brings you closer to the types of benefits only Caesars can offer. Hotel stays, VIP experiences, sports and concert tickets, and more. It's not just an app, it's an empire. Who's your MVP so far?
I mean, listen, Lamar to me is not only, he's the rare guy who's like the best player a lot of the time, and he's also the most valuable player. Like, if you go by the letter of the law, you could argue all types. I'm sure in the NBA, if you really made an MVP award, like most valuable player to that team, like it wouldn't be as boring. The same thing with the NFL. But like we kind of know it's a best player award. And on top of that, I think Lamar is the guy that gets him out of trouble, like with consistency. I mean, like he's everything you want in a leader, in a teammate. Like from the outside looking in, I got such a like just level of respect for the person, but also for the player. I mean, like when you prepare for a guy like that, the run game is completely different. I know Derrick Henry is kind of the run game, but QB run, rushing the passer, you got to think about him. Deep ball, outside the numbers, underneath, everything that comes off of what they do. I mean, and half the time you look at like that Sam Hubbard play in Cincy.
Yeah.
That is like a Heisman moment. Yeah. Like if you think about it, like the MVP, he's had a couple of those moments. Now who am I drafting first at quarterback? Yeah. It's always going to be Mahomes, and it's going to be Josh Allen for me. And a lot of that's due to the playoffs. And if the Ravens can go on a run this year in the playoffs, maybe we'll be talking about, Lamar in that respect. But I think he's been an MVP. I think he's on pace to be the MVP again. But we should be talking about Goff too.
I agree.
Josh. And again, I don't think Goff is Pat, Josh, Lamar good, but he's that valuable and he's playing that good. So he should be talked about in that light.
Best Belichick destination in your mind. You played for him. There's going to be some openings here. Like just guessing on what the openings are going to be. You put him where this time 3 months from now?
Man, if there's an opening in New York, I think that'd be cool to see him there. Just with the history, I think it'd be cool to see him with the Jets, but in another way. But like, I don't know that hearing him talk about the Jets on Inside the NFL that he's real psyched about their organizational, kind of deal. Throw me out a couple. Throw me out. I
mean, New Orleans, Dallas, Chicago.
Dallas too crazy.
Sounds too crazy. Giants are probably going to be open. Or not be Chicago, maybe. Yes. The Giants probably not going to be open. Excuse me. I said that wrong. Brian Daboll has gotten a vote of confidence. Chicago, maybe that could be interesting. There's some rumors now that Ben Johnson won in Chicago last year, and he was keeping an eye on that. That could be a really cool job.
Could be a really cool job. I don't want. I'm only doing this because I got love for you. So I'm going to say this without it getting aggregated. Don't clip this for a social.
Don't aggregate it. I'm not going to.
How do I say this in different 3-word bursts so that you can't put it together and put it in a quote?
But it will not be tweeted. It will not be tweeted from here. Remember this time we tried to do that for Dolphins, the Dolphins Tua thing, and the Dolphins fans found it anyway. I didn't even know we had posted it. Like literally, I didn't know we had posted the episode, and the Tuanon found it, and I was like, "What happened?"
And here's the thing: I should be excited to get clip. My Dolphins takes have all been true.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Okay, here's
all right. Anyway,
all right.
Go ahead.
If Sirianni got now, you say something. Say something. Break it up with something.
Nick Sirianni is the head football coach of the Philadelphia.
If he got hit by a bus or lightning hit him, I mean, I could see him in the Navy Yard looking at the boats every day after practice. Mm-hmm. Like there's lacrosse nearby. Yep. There's boats. There's good offensive line.
Yep, good offensive lineman.
There's a white slot corner. Some white slot corner, bro.
Bro, I thought the point was to back it aggregated. Now you're talking Cooper DeJean, bro?
No, and for the record, man, I think I like Nick, dude. Like, I just think he's got to be less emotional.
Yeah.
Like, you can tell he's kind of he's like, Kev, I don't know if you agree. Is there a coach that's more like the fan base?
I've never seen it. Like, Ditka in Chicago was a little bit like it.
Yeah.
A little bit. And I think Buddy Ryan, I wasn't around for it, but Buddy Ryan seemed like an Eagles guy. I think they loved him back there.
Absolutely, but I'm just saying.
And Rex with the Jets too, by the way.
No question.
That. But Nick has a different attitude on the sideline than any of those guys or anybody I've ever seen.
Nick's so Philly, man. I love his energy and emotion. Like, that's what he wears his heart on his sleeve, but he's got to hone it. You know, like, I'm almost convinced, it's not a math decision when you go for two. It's more like, do I want to, like, am I charged up? Am I feeling it in the moment? Like, he's so emotional. Yeah. And I think part of it is, like, he's still a young head coach.
Yeah.
Like, you talk about guys getting 2 chances and that sort of thing. Like, there's time for them to get it right. And they're on a 4-game winning streak. So,
yeah. They're putting it together. Last thing for you, it's something we do with every guest. It's called One Rep Back. You get to redo any play from your career, any level. Get to do it different. It doesn't have to be better or just different process, whatever. What play are you revisiting?
Either the one I got hurt on, which kind of ended my prime, that I would have been like, oh, load halt's falling on your leg. Like, you need to move out of the way. Or there was a play at the end of the Super Bowl against the Pats where I kind of beat the right tackle, and this was after BG forced a fumble, and they were backed up. It was 4th down on, like, the 5. They had to go for it on their own 5. And he just got it out to Amendola. Yeah. Like, I'm talking, like, the length of my fingers. And, it still haunts me. Honestly, we won the game, but I'm like, man, you could have been a hero. Instead, they just like you a lot. You know what I mean?
You could have gotten that statue.
No, I could have won up BG. I could have been like, oh, BG, what now? But instead, very deservedly so, my man BG, he's the hero. And honestly, still seeing him play, great. Is insane. I love BG, bro. And do I think about that play a lot? Yeah, I do, because it's one of those things where you're like, if just one more pat, I could have had that a second strip sack. It would have been great, but do I still think about it all the time? No,
you've gotten over it.
Gotten over it.
And you've been punched in the face before, which is just important lessons. It's just important lessons for us all.
I didn't think we'd need, but honestly, like, it is an important lesson, I guess.
It is. It really is. Chris Long, Greenlight Podcast, Inside the NFL with Bill Belichick and Ryan Clark and Ocho Cinco and everybody. Thanks, buddy.
Thank you so much, Kev. Love your show, bro. Always. See ya.